welcome to Travel with Abby and Megan. I'm Abby Gray, chef and partner in Travel with Abby and Megan. We're excited to bring you conversations, cooking, and culture with Abby and Megan.
And I'm Megan Buteau. I'm a cultural attaché and lawyer. And together, Abby and I have Travel with Abby and Megan, combines her love of culinary adventures and my love of cultural curiosities to lead small, intimate tour groups around the world.
Last time we took you to Marrakesh, which you can find on YouTube and the BNN archives, I believe. And we thought today we would take you to Barcelona, another vibrant and gorgeous city with lots of amazing architecture and food and lots of beautiful places to explore.
Beautiful weather and amazing artwork, yeah.
Yeah, it's located in the south of Spain. It's also known as the Catalonian region, and the Catalonians are quite proud, and I'm sure you've seen in the news that Spain sometimes has some unrest as to what they're going to do, if they're going to pull away from Spain or not. But today we're just going to focus on the architecture and the food and some of the things that you need to see around the city. Mm-hmm. And we're also excited to have our intern, Cooking with Abby, has had Blake Landry with us from Norwell High School. He's a great young man who's graduating and going to go off and do awesome things, and he's helped us a lot over the last few weeks, and his birthday's tomorrow, so we're happy about that. So Megan.
Yes, Abby.
What are some of your favorite places that you like to take us to today?
Well, first, if we're heading over to Barcelona.
How we get there, maybe.
How do we get there? So, fly into their airport, Il Prat, and from there it's easy to take a bus or a train into the city center. However, if you're arriving at night, you will have to take a taxi.
That's true. And also, it's pretty easy to fly to Barcelona. Mm-hmm. A lot of the major, I think from Boston you have to connect through either London or Paris, I think. Iberia flies to Madrid, and then there's a flight down to Barcelona, but you can also take the train.
Yes.
So if you're coming somewhere from Europe, the train is a really great and really fun way to travel in Spain, especially because you see so much.
Right. So their main bus station is called Estació de Sants, and that is what you would look for in the city center.
And you can take the ferry if you're coming from... I always mess it up. Where are we coming from? Morocco or Algeria?
Yep. Tunis. So yeah, so there's many different ways of getting there. So it's right at your fingertips. And then a little bit about the weather. So it is a Mediterranean climate, a maritime Mediterranean climate. So it can be pleasant winters and warm/hot in the summer.
Yeah, it can be fiercely hot. And it can also be very humid on the coast.
Right.
We're going to Mallorca this summer. We've been so lucky to go there before. And that's a little island off very close to Barcelona, off the coast of Spain. And sometimes at night it can be pretty humid. So we suggest the months of May and June. September and October are always great months because then you'll get, Spain is on the same latitude as Boston, so you tend to get the same kind of, not cold like it gets here, but you won't be able to lie out at the beach. Yeah, minus the snow.
Yeah, and they do have their rainy season, so that's another thing you just want to plan around.
What months, do you know what months?
Well, I think, like you were saying, kind of saying the shoulders of spring and fall are good, but
so like
really
April
in the middle of like spring and fall can be rainy, so you want to avoid those as well.
And also, the other consideration is Spain is very popular with the Brits, and the Brits go to school to the middle of July. They're on a full year system. So it's also actually very busy in October because they have a thing called half term.
Right, half term breaks,
but it won't impact your flights as much as summer will. So we suggest really watching it because it gets super crowded and a lot more expensive to fly there.
Yeah. Well, now that we have the logistics out of the way, we can move on to some of the fun stuff.
Yes.
So Barcelona itself is a very old city. Many of the buildings date back to medieval Roman times even, and they have many, many beautiful buildings. But a really well-known period that really impacted Barcelona, and specifically one artist, Antonio Gaudi, and he really embraced the Modernista period, and they also call it Art Nouveau. So in it, he really took into account a lot of natural influences into his art. He really wanted to reflect sort of the trees and nature that surrounded him and surrounded Barcelona. And you can really see that in a lot of his artwork. We're going to talk a bit about it.
He was born in 1852. right? I
He
believe
was
1852.
born, yeah, and he was 73 when he passed away, and he really worked in that era of the Art Nouveau and the Modernista period, which was really between 1885 and 1950.
Okay.
So he was right in the thick of it. His best known work is the Sagrada Familia, which is the beautiful church basilica.
It's a Roman Catholic church.
Roman Catholic Church, and and it's just really a sight to be seen. It's still being built. It was
It was meant originally to take 100 years, I think, originally, when they first started planning it. And it also is, Megan has not been there yet, but we are going to go.
Yeah.
And I have been there, and I have to tell you that it is the eighth wonder of the world. Not many places wow me to a point where I am speechless, clearly, but this place did. And right now on your screen, Megan, you're seeing the inside, where you sit in the, is it the nave, where you go into the front of the church and you sit, and light comes at you the way he's built the church. Light comes at you at all different directions, so it creates this pattern on the floor and all over the walls, and it is so breathtaking. That you have to do this.
Yeah,
if
I think
you go
from
there.
these pictures you can really see how intricate it is. It was begun being built in 1882, and they're projecting that it'll be finished in 2026. So it really is a remarkable structure.
And he also built a model of it, a full model of it, which they use now to actually continue construction, because no one's around that was helping back then. So it's pretty. My husband, who is an engineer, a mechanical engineer, thinks it's one of the most brilliant things he's ever seen, because he did every detail on this model.
Yeah. Well, Gaudi was known for, he didn't do so much as blueprints or drawings, but he really did the 3D models. And when you see his buildings,
which is so forward thinking.
Yeah, and you can see how it really makes sense, because his buildings are so textural. They're so they really are really. You could really only get the idea of it through, I think, a 3D model. Blueprints wouldn't do it justice for continuing to be built.
True.
But that last picture we saw of Sagrada Familia, it showed the cranes in the distance and the spires. And the church is meant to have, or the cathedral is meant to have 18 spires when it's done. And it's going to be the tallest church building in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So, like you said, it really is an unbelievable structure. It'll have 3 grand facades: the Nativity facade to the east, the Passion facade to the west, and the Glory facade to the south, which is still being worked on.
And he had we have some of the pictures too that you were talking about in the front. I don't know if you can see the pictures here that we have in the front, but those are 4 more views.
Right.
Of,
it has the interior.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 4 more views of the interior. The Jesus, which is that is carved into the. I can't remember where it is, but it's carved into the exterior of the church. And then on the right, I can't remember what we have over there in terms of, okay, these are just some of the friezes. I always,
Fresco?
I mess up art
on
terms, so clearly that's why I cook.
On the outside of the building, so some of it's kind of this.
But they're all over this enormous structure.
Yeah, it's
so
hard to see the detail
that's an
from
aerial
the pictures,
view.
but yeah.
And are all the spires built?
No, there's 18 total, so it's still a work in
Still
progress.
in the works.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they have 10 done from what I was reading. I'll stop interrupting you. Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, so the Sagrada Familia is one of the most famous, if not the famous. Some other buildings that Gaudi did, other structures Gaudi did in Barcelona. So 7 Gaudi buildings, as we'll talk about in a little bit, he did a park, have all made it onto the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So they're all recognized UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which is really amazing for one architect, artist. So the other one is the Park Güell. We'll see a picture of that coming up on the screen. And that was originally started as the idea of a sort of what you would say is a modern day subdivision. So it was built from 1900 to 1914 and then was officially opened as a public park and deemed a World Heritage Site. And it has gardens, architecture elements, and it is located on the northern face of Carmel Hill in Barcelona.
So it's really, when we went there, it was it's something to behold. You should really take a picnic and go and spend hours there. And I know that wasn't. I don't know if it was his intent, but what he did was there's a bench that they placed so you can kind of sit and stare at the Sagrada Familia. So you can always be looking at that.
Right.
The church.
Well, originally they intended it, they were going to build homes throughout it, like I said, a modern day subdivision. And the homes were going to be really technologically advanced, kind of the top of the line, really forward thinking. And then unfortunately they never got that far, but again, the park still has a lot of Gaudi influences. So it has a strong nod to Catholicism, and it has a building that was designed to be a chapel. And then it also has some mythological elements, and it was modeled after the Temple of Apollo of Delphi. So it's another just beautiful Gaudi piece in Barcelona.
It's a must-see. The other thing is sometimes you go on these tours. If you're booking a tour, do not book a speed tour to go to these sites all in one day, because you will want to...
I mean, you could spend a day at one place.
You
almost.
could,
There's
but
just
Sagrada
so much,
Familia, you want to spend half a day. You just can't. You can't imagine what it's like. You really, it's breathtaking. But I say that not so that you don't get caught up going on a fast bus tour and you only get to drive by it. You really want to go in it.
Well, there's so much detail not on the exterior, but the interior, as well as the stories of the families that had these places built, of who he worked with. So there's really a lot of detail to be learned. We're just sort of glossing over it, I feel like. But
and what we're going to do is just while Megan talks, just so that we can cook and finish up and show you everything we want to show you, I'm going to start cooking the chicken. I'm doing everything serve safe. At home, you might do it a little bit differently, but I'm just doing it so that you know that we're adhering to the laws. And I'm using a glove to touch the chicken, and also I kept the chicken in here, so when I use my board to cut vegetables, there's no cross-contamination.
So maybe you could just tell us real quick what is on the menu today, Abby?
Oh, on the menu today is a Catalonian gazpacho.
Delicious.
And I'll tell you a little bit what makes a Catalonian when you're done with taking us on the tour. And then we really actually want to hear that sizzle, but I don't like making the producer nervous about fire, so I'm just being extra cautious. And so we're gonna cook some chicken. I've just lightly breaded it in a little, not breaded it. I've just lightly floured it a little bit, because you want that yummy browning to happen in the olive oil.
I can hear the sizzle starting now.
A little bit, yeah. But what you really want to do just at home is you want to get your oil hot. You know, olive oil has a nice heat temperature, and there you go. You start to hear it. So when you always have cold meat in a hot pan, and when you put it in the pan, that's when you want to hear that sizzle. It still needs to be a little hotter. So we'll wait a minute. Where are we going to next? Because all I'm going to do for the moment is just brown this chicken.
Okay. Next up is Casa Mila, which is another building in Barcelona. It was a home that was designed by Gaudi between 1906 and 1912. And so this was designed actually as an apartment flat. So it's a modernist building, and it's very, if you look at it, it's hard to see in the picture, but it's very rough hewn, so not a smooth surface. And at the time it was built, it was really controversial because it was an undulating stone facade. You can see how it looks like it's a kind of a wave like across the building that you see there. He also not only used a lot of design innovations, but he also used a lot of structural innovations. So this has a self-supporting stone facade and a free plan floor, underground garage, as well as a beautiful terrace up on the roof. Which
again is pretty significant in terms of forward-thinking architecture.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Not only were these artistically, works of art, but architecturally they were really ahead of their time as well.
I think that's why a lot of college students and architectural students end up studying in Barcelona.
Right, studying Gaudi. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean to be walking around a city and just seeing these, every day is
pretty cool.
Is an amazing thought. And so there's actually 2 buildings, and it has courtyards in the building, and then they're built. It's 9 stories, as we talked about. And so here we've actually moved on. Flower boxes, yes. And then here we've actually moved on to the last building that we're going to talk about, which is the Casa Batlló. And it was designed by Gaudi also, and it's considered one of his masterpieces. And it was a remodel of a previously built house. And this one has a skeleton. So this one is known as the dinosaur, the bone house. because everything on it looks like, again, has a stone facade, and the roof is arched and almost has a dinosaur or a dragon-like appearance. This also has a lot of religious or Catholic references, as was common in a lot of Gaudi's artwork. So the towers have monograms of Jesus and Maria and Joseph, and it shows just really how religious he was.
Come help me.
And has kind of the theme of the Holy Family.
Okay,
So,
while you do that, just so
Yeah.
I'm going to start also making the gazpacho.
okay.
Because our show is going faster than we can imagine.
Yeah.
So Blake over here, this is Blake. He helped me mise out all my ingredients because you know I like to mise out everything. So these are, we blanched these tomatoes this morning, didn't we? We used gorgeous yellow and red heirloom tomatoes. And then Blake labels everything for me. You should do this at home because it is really great to keep your recipes in order. We're literally going to take everything that's on this plate. So we're going to take the tomatoes, the oil, the water, although I'm not going to put as much water in because I'm using the water from the tomatoes because it'll have a lot more flavor. We're going to add garlic. We're going to add some breadcrumbs. We're going to add some apple cider vinegar to this recipe. We're going to add the peppers and cucumbers and some salt. And then I'm going to blend that all, and that's going to become a gorgeous summer soup. We're going to, gazpacho. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil on the top, and we're going to put some breadcrumbs when we finish it off. We'll show you that. And right now I'm just browning this chicken, and I'm going to make a sherry sauce because we're making some chicken tapas.
And so we had talked a little bit about how it can be warm/hot in Barcelona. And so also going into our summer, so the gazpacho, which is a cold soup, would be perfect. And then we talked about the tapas, which are small bites. So it's perfect for a really warm climate, you know, not really having these big, heavy meals. It's kind of smaller bites, lighter bites, cooler bites.
So the Spanish, like a lot of European countries, they eat smaller meals. So you eat maybe a little bit differently. You eat later. You eat later in the morning. You eat later in the afternoon. And in Spain, you eat dinner around 10 o'clock.
Because you have your siesta in the afternoon, right?
You do. And the cities don't do it anymore, but pretty much. But the countryside does.
Yeah.
And you cannot get a reservation in Madrid or Barcelona or anywhere before 9:15. And then you're considered kind of wimpy going out that early. You really want to go out at like 10 o'clock. That's the hot spot and the hot time to go. I'm just browning this chicken so I can make a little tapa and finish it off with a little, what I'm going to do is make a sherry sauce. And a tapa is like we said, small bites. In fact, we took Blake out to lunch for his birthday, and we went to the local restaurant Toro, which we love, Jamie Bissonette and Ken Oranger's place.
So if you'd like a taste of Spain in Boston, we'd highly recommend it in the South End.
Yep. And we had I can't remember the Spanish names, but we had shrimp, and we had a delicious like grilled cheese with serrano ham and blood orange jam.
We had a Catalan flatbread.
A Catalan flatbread with the
roasted eggplant and tomato with a little cheese on it.
Oh yeah, that was so good. Yeah. And then we had a fresh pea salad with some. Now I'm forgetting. They're anchovies, but they're bolognese. I butcher every language in case you didn't already know that. Try not to. I'm better when I'm actually in country. So anyways, it's a great restaurant if you want to try some authentic Spanish food. And we saw them making sangria for tonight.
Yeah, beautiful paellas.
Beautiful paella.
And then did you bring your paella pan?
I did bring my paella pan.
Yeah.
I just want to show you, I wanted to make paella today, but it's a little bit more involved. So this is a traditional paella pan, and this is how they serve it in Spain. It is supposed to be, it is seasoned rather, not weathered, it's seasoned. So I clean it off, but then after I make the paella, I just take olive oil, hot soapy water, and then I take a cloth with olive oil and bring it over the pan again. So this can be found at almost any, Crate and Barrel or Pottery Barn. Paellas are fabulous. They're traditionally always include chicken and shellfish in Madrid, but there's so many recipes.
So many variations.
And they do a
yeah.
nice like rice on the bottom, and there's tons of recipes nowadays, and there's beautiful ones in this book, which is Claudia Rodin is a gorgeous, has a gorgeous book. The Food of Spain has kind of everything from each region, and it's really nice recipes to follow. She's very doable. And just so you know, with this recipe with the chicken, I just used an air-chilled, no antibiotic chicken tenders and cut them up in little pieces because the crew usually likes chicken.
And so you do bite-sized pieces? That's the idea?
Pieces. Okay. Yeah, bite-sized pieces. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sanitize my knife because I'm going to cut the vegetables. So I have a food-safe sanitizer, no worries, and very safe. And we're going to make the gazpacho, and then we'll finish off the chicken. Yep. So where else are we going in this gorgeous city?
Abby's cutting the, let me turn this down. While Abby's finishing up chopping the vegetables, we have just a couple other places we're going to hit. So we've kind of hit the Gaudi highlights. And then another great place to check out is the National Museum of Art. And not only is it a beautiful building, but it has an amazing medieval collection. It has great Romanesque paintings.
A significant Catalonian collection.
Yeah, a lot of Catalonian, so Catalonian artists, Gaudi, or Casas. It has great Gothic art, European Renaissance and Baroque painters. Really, it's just not only Catalonian art, but just amazing European art from across the ages. So, and of course, before you go, you should always check out what their current...
check the websites.
Yeah, temporary exhibits are, so. And then lastly, another fun place to check out, especially if you want to kind of stretch your legs and move around, is the Olympic Park. So the Olympics were in Barcelona in 1992, and
God, I remember that.
Yeah, and they say it was one of the best, most well-represented Olympics. They had the most athletes from around the world. So, and like what a lot of countries do is they then reuse these parks. So
I was only
it has
25.
an amazing. And now you're 26.
I know. That's important.
So it has a stadium that holds about
me?
56,000 spectators, and they use it for sporting events and music concerts. And then they also have there's a big tower there. So
they do an insider tour as well. I think Richard and Alice did that when we went with our family, and it's really cool. I try to tour all the Olympic parks, like when I was in Munich or wherever I am, because each one has a story.
Well, and I think they also use a lot of local artists and architects to really design it. So not only are they made, obviously, for the athletic endeavors that are being competed there, but they also are representative of where they're being held. So.
Yeah, and usually it brings so much money to the where it's being held that it also, the business people get quite involved so that they can figure out what they're going to do with it after.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, that just is just a whisper of what Barcelona has to offer, let alone Spain. Well, that looks delicious.
Thank you. I was going to say, this is just going to be a little noisy for a minute, but this is, so as you can see, this is all fresh and beautiful ingredients. It's great for you. It's a really healthy option. I'm just going to turn on the blender, which you can't avoid. It is loud. So just do it for a minute. Okay.
I always think gazpacho is like drinking the garden. Or
that's
eating
a good way to think of it. So I'm just going to get my tasting spoon to see what it tastes like, because if you're making food for other people, you got to know what you're serving, right?
That's right.
Well, that is really good. I'm going to put a little bit more olive oil in it. You're supposed to use 3/4 of a cup, but I had Blake here bring me some extra, because I'll show you what we do when we serve it. I didn't have time to toast the croutons today, which I normally would. Okay, I normally would toast the croutons in the oven because it would be, you can make it out of day-old, I make it out of day-old French bread, and you just toast them, toss them in a little bit of olive oil and toast them, and they're so good. Ooh, I'm gonna clean that up, don't worry, don't worry. I'm a professional. Actually, you always do have a wet paper towel by you because inevitably you do spill. Okay, so I just want to clean up the edge a little bit. We have water. We do have water, don't we?
Yep, right here.
Oh, yeah. Let me just do a little of that. Okay, so you always clean it up like this. You never serve it. Yeah, little spots on it. Okay, and then we're going to put a tiny bit of olive oil in the center because you want to see that. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? You want to, I don't know if you can. You want to see the olive oil in the center there. It creates some bubbles and
Tip
some
it?
nice,
Yeah, there it is.
I don't want to tip it out, but
Yeah.
you can see it now. Okay, and then we'll put some of these handmade. I decided to get cheese and garlic because that's very Spanish. You wouldn't get Caesar. You can do whatever you want, but this will taste absolutely authentic. And then that's how I would serve that. Super easy, right? Gorgeous for a weeknight. All right, so we're running out of time, so I'm gonna force this sauce. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the chicken in there. All right, it's cooked. And I'm going to put the garlic in there. So the other thing about Barcelona are there are so many delicious, fabulous restaurants along the water.
Right, there was one specifically that you had mentioned.
Yes, well, there's Moo, which is a
yes.
Michelin-starred restaurant. I thought it was like Moo in Boston. Well, we said to our older daughter, where do you want to go? I'm putting a 1/4 cup of sherry wine, cooking wine in there. And she said she wanted to go to Moo. She wanted steak because she was going back to college. And I thought, well, you can make a reservation anywhere you want. And we didn't realize it was a Michelin-starred restaurant. It was very good, though.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch along the
What
water.
was the cat one you had also?
Oh, my favorite. Four
Yeah.
Cats. So Four Cats is in a lot of literature.
Right,
And
right.
it was a place where they hung out, where artists and writers would hang out in Barcelona. And it's still in existence. So it's a fabulous little restaurant, still there.
So in general, would you say a lot of these restaurants, do you need to make reservations? Can you walk in? What would you recommend for
I would say if you're on
Barcelona
vacation,
diners?
absolutely make a reservation. If you're in an Airbnb, just call the restaurant.
Right.
If you're at a hotel, maybe call your concierge about a month beforehand.
Okay.
Because if you go in high season, it's really hard to figure it out.
And it's difficult just to walk in, so you
And
do want to...
don't go for the tourist places. Try to
Yeah.
do some intel and get some stuff off the beaten path
Yeah.
because don't ever go to a restaurant that's close to a site. Like don't go to the cafe right next to the Sagrada Familia because
And
you'll
feel
end up
free to-
paying a
yeah.
fortune and it won't be that good.
And feel free to email us at travelwithabbyandmegan@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to pass along some recommendations or any more information.
Absolutely. And if you can you guys pan onto this chicken really quickly so they can see what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, so there it is. It's not anything super fancy, right? We just did some chicken in flour. I would put some thyme in. I would finish it also with some olives, so I'm gonna just do that if we have a minute. And
And so we talked about the tapas style, so how would you eat this then? You'd have...
so I would serve it on a small plate. With probably some bread on the
was gonna
side.
say, okay,
So
yep.
always have like a nice loaf of like gorgeous baguette or like a soft, chewy bread on the side.
There's always so many delicious sauces.
It's the
and-
sauces.
Yeah.
So this sauce, like I'm even gonna put a little of the olives in there with the sherry is really quite delicious.
Yeah, and the garlic.
And the
Super
garlic.
simple, but really flavorful.
All right, so I'm just adding more olives. And a little of the juice, but that juice can be acidic. So is the sherry, but I want the sherry taste to come through with the garlic. We're just gonna add a little bit more of that.
So just for the amounts, how much garlic would you say
Well,
like a
I
tablespoon?
think we added, what did we add? Do you remember, Blake?
2 cloves.
2 cloves. But I always add more, so it's really what you like. If you like garlic, there's a great thing called Dorot, D-O-R-O-T, and it is minced frozen garlic. And I use it a lot because 1 square equals a bulb.
Yeah.
And it's really nice stuff, and it just gives a perfect flavor. They flash freeze it once it's cut, so it's the most authentic.
You can get that at most grocery stores?
You can.
Yeah. Trader Joe's also does a lot of frozen chopped herbs or...
Now what I typically do is just I temp this. You want to temp it to 165, so that's good. You test a few pieces.
Some of the bigger pieces, right?
I always temp my chicken because then you don't overcook it. A lot of people overcook their chicken because they don't want to get sick. But you really just need to buy a thermopen or a good meat thermometer. You always want chicken at 165. You won't have any problems, and you won't have bad, terrible burnt chicken. Okay, I'm gonna taste that in a second to make sure it tastes okay, and I'm gonna take some thyme because thyme is really beautiful and gorgeous in this.
What are some traditional flavors in Spanish cooking? So we talked about their sauces, we talked about
Olives.
garlic and olives.
Olive oil, too, is a big thing in Spain. The Italians like to think that they, and I love my Italians, but they like to think they're the only ones that make olive oil, but the Spanish make some beautiful olive oil. Peppers, blood orange, like we were talking about, anchovies, salt, aioli, garlic aioli. So they love mayonnaise and garlic. And they like to put lots of other things into it, like pimentos, which are peppers. I would say peppers are big. Vegetables.
Yep. They also do a lot on tapas, I noticed, with eggs and potatoes. There's a really...
They do like eggs, potatoes, and spinach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really, you know, and then of course it depends where you go in the region in terms of what flavors you get. And the paellas, like I said, they do a shellfish paella. Oh, Serrano ham is also another big thing.
Right, meats and cheeses they do a lot. You'll find in the tapas.
Yeah, but Serrano ham is very big. They love their pork. It's different than prosciutto. It's a smaller cut. It's dried for longer. There are some differences. It tends to be maybe a little bit more salty. And Manchego cheese is really great with that.
Almonds, right?
Almonds are big, yeah. Almonds. Trying to think of some other flavors. There's so many.
And I think kind of common across some of our different shows where we've talked about France and Italy is that just really fresh ingredients, seasonal ingredients, again, so.
Yeah, the Europeans have a year-round market of fresh ingredients, so.
And also depending on where you are in Spain, because sometimes you're bordering France, sometimes you're closer to, say, Morocco or Algiers.
Yep.
So it's, you know, you'll have some African influences, you'll have French influences in other areas.
Well, the markets, I think the markets of, I'm just tasting this. Quite good. The markets of Morocco and Tangier are really quite evident on the beaches of Spain. A lot of folks take the ferry over or boats over and they sell their goods on the beaches, and so you get everything from handmade crafts and fabric to lots of spices. You do have to be careful though. Be careful who you're buying them from because there are a few pirate sellers.
Yeah.
So I think the ones that you want to get products from have a license, like they wear a badge. So you can check that out too. All right, so I'm going to turn the heat off of this.
Yeah.
And that's ready to serve. I forgot a little plate, but I did a bowl. So what I'll do is I'll serve it how I would put it with bread, of course, like I had mentioned. But it depends how many people. So if you're serving several different tapas, like you could do chicken, shrimp, you could do like the lovely sandwich that we had, which was a pressed cheese with Serrano ham and the blood orange. Jam. And then you put usually however many people are at the table, you give them enough for each person. So for this dish, this looks pretty, and I would put this on a tray maybe with all my other little dishes. Do you want to, which camera do you want me to look? They have to tell me what to do. Okay, so that's the camera. So that's what you want it to look like. You, of course, could put it on a plate, but it looks kind of pretty in a bowl, too. And then if you do several different bowls, several different bowls, you can put it on a tray and then my hand is in the middle. And then you can put your bread in the center and then just give everybody little plates.
Sounds delicious.
That's what they're called, yeah. So it really is a fun way to cook. And like I said, Claudia Rodan, she's a fabulous person to follow, but there's so many good Spanish chefs, and there's lots of good tapas recipe on Epicurious and .com, and you can email me at cookingwithabbygray@gmail.com, and I can give you some from my recipe file.